The delicate chime of crystal glasses filled the air as another toast was proposed. I forced a smile, my cheeks aching from the effort of maintaining this facade. It was my 35th birthday, and I was surrounded by friends and family in the opulent dining room of my husband's family estate. Yet, despite the lavish decorations and the warmth of the gathering, I felt a chill creep down my spine as I caught the critical gaze of my mother-in-law, Vivian. To Adeline, my husband James raised his glass, his eyes twinkling with genuine affection. Happy birthday, darling. May this year bring you all the success and happiness you deserve. As the guests echoed the sentiment, I took a sip of the expensive champagne, hoping it would dull the anxiety gnawing at my insides. I should have been elated, basking in the love and attention. Instead, I felt like an imposter in my own celebration, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It didn't take long. Well, Vivian's crisp voice cut through the chatter like a knife. I suppose we should be grateful Adeline has made it to another year without any major incidents. The room fell silent, all eyes darting between Vivian and me. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and anger threatening to boil over. "Mother," James warned, but Vivian waved him off with a perfectly manicured hand. "Oh, come now, James. We're all family here. Adeline knows I only want what's best for her." Vivian's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. After all, it's not easy being married into such a prestigious family, especially when one's background is so modest. I gripped my glass tighter, knuckles turning white. Every fiber of my being wanted to lash out, to defend myself against the thinly veiled insults. But I knew better. I'd learned over the years that engaging Vivian only gave her more ammunition. "Thank you for your concern, Vivian," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm just grateful to be here with everyone who cares about me." Vivian's eyes narrowed, clearly disappointed by my diplomatic response. "Of course, dear. We're all so proud of your little achievements. Though I do wonder when you'll finally decide to give James a child. The biological clock is ticking, you know." The room collectively inhaled, the tension palpable. James stepped in, his hand protectively on my shoulder. "Mother, that's enough. This is Adeline's day, and we're here to celebrate her, not discuss our personal matters." I leaned into James's touch, grateful for his support, but feeling utterly defeated. This was supposed to be my moment, a celebration of another year of growth and accomplishments. Instead, it had devolved into another opportunity for Vivian to remind me of my perceived shortcomings. As the party continued around me, I found myself retreating inward. The laughter and conversation became a distant buzz, overshadowed by the echoes of Vivian's words in my mind. I excused myself, needing a moment of solitude to gather my thoughts. In the quiet of the powder room, I stared at my reflection in the ornate mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed familiar, yet strange. Where was the confident, ambitious Adeline who had once dreamed of changing the world through her designs? When had I allowed myself to become this shadow, constantly seeking approval from someone who would never give it? I splashed cold water on my face, the shock bringing me back to the present. As I dried off, I caught sight of the delicate necklace James had given me for our anniversary, a silver pendant in the shape of a key. He had said it symbolized the key to his heart, but now I saw it differently. This key wasn't just about our love. It was about unlocking my own potential, my own strength. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my posture and looked myself in the eye. "Enough," I whispered to my reflection. "This ends now." With renewed determination, I rejoined the party. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite conversation and forced smiles. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. A fire had been ignited, and I knew that from this moment on, things would be different. As the last of the guests departed and James busied himself with seeing off his parents, I found myself alone in the study. The room was a testament to old money and power, with its leather-bound books and antique furnishings. It had always intimidated me, but tonight I saw it with new eyes. I approached the massive oak desk, running my fingers along its polished surface. This was where James's father had built his empire, where generations of his family had made decisions that shaped industries. And here I was, the outsider, the girl from the wrong side of the tracks who had dared to dream of belonging in this world. My gaze fell on a framed photo on the desk, James and me on our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope for the future. What had happened to that Adeline? The one who had fought her way through architecture school, who had big plans and even bigger dreams? I picked up the photo, my thumb tracing the outline of my younger self. That Adeline hadn't let anyone dictate her worth. She hadn't cowered in the face of challenges or shrunk herself to fit into someone else's expectations. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the girl in the photo. "I've let you down. But that changes now." The sound of footsteps in the hallway jolted me back to reality. I quickly replaced the photo and turned to find James entering the study, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and concern. "There you are," he said, crossing the room to embrace me. "I'm so sorry about Mother. She was completely out of line." I allowed myself to melt into his arms for a moment, drawing strength from his unwavering support. But as I pulled away, I knew I had to voice the thoughts that had been brewing all evening. "James," I began, my voice low but firm, "we need to talk about what happened tonight." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know. Mother's behavior was inexcusable. I promise I'll have a word with her." "No," I interrupted, surprising both of us with my forcefulness. "This isn't just about tonight. It's about every dinner, every holiday, every moment where I've been made to feel less than. And it's not just your mother, James. It's this whole world we're in." James's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, organizing my thoughts. "I mean that I've spent years trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. I've dimmed my light, downplayed my achievements, all in an effort to not rock the boat. And for what? To still be treated like an outsider?" "Adeline," James said softly, reaching for my hand. "You know that's not how I see you. You're my partner, my equal." I squeezed his hand, grateful for his love, but needing him to understand. "I know that, James, and I love you for it. But it's not enough anymore. I can't keep living like this, constantly seeking approval from people who will never give it. I need to reclaim who I am." "And who is that?" James asked, his eyes searching mine. I stood a little straighter, feeling a surge of the old confidence I'd buried for so long. "I'm Adeline Foster. I graduated top of my class from one of the most prestigious architecture programs in the country. I've designed buildings that have won awards and changed skylines, and I've done it all while navigating a world that often seems determined to see me fail." James's expression softened, a mix of pride and realization dawning on his face. "You're right. God, Adeline, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much you've been holding back." "Neither did I admitted. "But I can't do it anymore." "I won't. So what does this mean?" James asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I took a moment to consider my words carefully. "It means I'm done playing small. I'm going to start pursuing the projects and opportunities I've been hesitant to reach." 4. "It means I'm going to stand up for myself, even when it's uncomfortable. And it means," I paused, meeting his gaze directly, "that things might get a bit turbulent with your family." James nodded slowly, processing my words. "I understand, and I want you to know I'm with you. Whatever you need to do to be true to yourself, I support you." Relief washed over me at his words. I hadn't realized how much I'd needed to hear that, to know that I had an ally in this fight. "Thank you," I whispered, leaning in to kiss him softly. As we broke apart, a thought occurred to me. There's something else, I said, a hint of excitement creeping into my voice. I've been keeping a secret, and I think it's time I shared it with you. James raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. A secret? What kind of secret? I couldn't help but smile, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Remember that big project I've been working on at the firm? The one I couldn't talk about? He nodded. The mysterious Project Phoenix? You've been pulling some late nights for that one. Well, I said, my heart racing with the thrill of finally sharing this news. It's not just a project. It's a transition plan. Anderson is retiring, and he's been grooming me to take over as CEO. James's jaw dropped, his eyes widening in shock. CEO? Adeline, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I bit my lip, the old insecurities threatening to resurface. I wasn't sure how you'd react, and with your family. I guess I was afraid of jinxing it, or of setting myself up for disappointment if it didn't work out. James pulled me into a tight embrace, his voice thick with emotion. Oh, Adeline, you should never doubt yourself like that. You're brilliant, and you deserve this. I'm so incredibly proud of you. Wrapped in his arms, I felt a surge of strength and determination. This was who I was meant to be, not the meek, approval-seeking woman I'd become, but a leader, an innovator, someone who could make a real difference in the world. It's not official yet, I said as we pulled apart. The announcement is supposed to be made at the firm's annual gala next month. But James, this is my chance to really make my mark, to show everyone, including your mother, what I'm truly capable of. A mischievous glint appeared in James's eye. Well then, I think it's time we start planning how to make that announcement unforgettable. And maybe, he added with a wink, give my dear mother a night she won't soon forget. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. I like the way you think, Mr. Foster. As we left the study hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited about the future. I was ready to reclaim my power, to step into the spotlight I'd been avoiding for far too long. Little did I know, the journey to that spotlight would be filled with more challenges, revelations, and personal growth than I could have ever imagined. The weeks following my birthday were a whirlwind of activity. By day, I threw myself into my work at Anderson & Steele with renewed vigor, finalizing plans for the transition and preparing for my new role as CEO. By night, James and I strategized, planning how to navigate the choppy waters of his family's expectations and my impending announcement. It was during one of these late-night planning sessions, curled up on our living room sofa with laptops and notepads strewn about, that I received an unexpected call from Anderson himself. Adeline, his gruff voice came through the speaker, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I exchanged a glance with James before responding, Not at all, sir. Is everything all right? There was a pause, and I could almost picture Anderson's furrowed brow as he chose his words carefully. I've just gotten off the phone with Vivian Foster. It seems she's concerned about the direction of the firm. My stomach dropped. Vivian. Of course, she would find a way to interfere, even in this. Concerned in what way? I asked, struggling to keep my voice neutral. Anderson sighed heavily. She's expressing doubts about our succession plan, says she's heard rumors that we're considering unconventional options for leadership. I felt James tense beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing it supportively. And what did you tell her? I pressed, dreading the answer. I told her that the future of Anderson & Steele is a matter for the board and current leadership to decide, Anderson replied firmly. But Adeline, I won't lie to you. Vivian Foster holds considerable sway in certain circles. Her disapproval could make things difficult. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to center myself. When I opened them again, I met James's concerned gaze and found strength in his unwavering support. "Thank you for letting me know, sir." "Is there anything you need me to do?" "Just keep doing what you're doing, Adeline. Your work speaks for itself." "But," he added, his tone softening slightly, "it might not hurt to make some additional allies before the gala. The more support we have, the smoother this transition will be." After exchanging a few more words, I ended the call and turned to James, my mind racing. "She knows," I said, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. "Somehow, your mother knows about the CEO position, and she's trying to sabotage it." James ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his face. "I'm so sorry, Adeline. I swear I didn't say anything to her." "I know you didn't," I assured him, squeezing his hand. "But this is Vivian we're talking about. She probably has eyes and ears everywhere." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this new challenge settling over us. Then, something inside me shifted. The initial shock and fear began to give way to a slow burning anger, and with it, a fierce determination. "You know what?" I said, sitting up straighter. "Let her try to sabotage this. I'm done running from her judgment, done trying to appease her impossible standards. If Vivian wants a fight, she's got one." James looked at me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "That's my girl," he said, a proud smile spreading across his face. "So, what's the plan?" I stood up, pacing the room as my mind whirred with possibilities. "Anderson said I need allies. Well, it's time I start calling in some favors and making some new connections. I've spent years building relationships in this industry, always. Careful not to overstep or appear too ambitious. But now it's time to use every resource at my disposal." I turned to James, a determined glint in my eye. "I need you to set up a meeting with your father." James's eyebrows shot up. "My father? Are you sure that's wise? He tends to defer to Mother on most things." I nodded. "Exactly, which is why I need to get to him first, make him see the value I bring to the table before Vivian can poison the well completely." As we spent the next few hours outlining our strategy, I felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. This was it, the moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for my entire career. It wasn't just about becoming CEO anymore. It was about proving to myself and everyone else that I deserved to be here, that I had earned my place at the table. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind already racing with the day ahead. As I stood in front of my closet, I realized that even my wardrobe choices felt different now. Gone were the muted tones and conservative cuts I'd hidden behind for so long. Today, I reached for a bold red power suit, a gift from James that I'd always been too intimidated to wear. As I fastened the last button, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me exuded confidence and determination. This was the Adeline I'd lost sight of, the one who wasn't afraid to stand out and make waves. "Ready to take on the world?" James asked, appearing in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. I took a sip, savoring the rich aroma. "More than ready." "Did you manage to set up that meeting with your father?" James nodded. "He agreed to meet us for lunch today. I told him it was important, but I didn't give any details." "Perfect," I said, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Let's hope we can get him on our side before Vivian has a chance to sway him." The morning flew by in a flurry of meetings and phone calls. I reached out to old colleagues, mentors, and even a few friendly competitors, carefully laying the groundwork for the support I'd need in the coming weeks. With each conversation, I felt my confidence growing. These were people who knew my work, who respected my abilities. Their enthusiasm for my potential leadership was a stark contrast to the doubt and criticism I'd grown accustomed to from Vivian. As lunchtime approached, I met James in the lobby of his father's office building. The imposing structure of glass and steel had always intimidated me, but today I viewed it differently. This wasn't just a symbol of the Foster family's power. It was a testament to what vision and determination could achieve. And I had plenty of both. "Ready?" James asked, offering his arm. I took a deep breath and nodded. "As I'll ever be." We rode the elevator to the top floor in silence, the weight of what we were about to do hanging between us. As the doors opened, we were greeted by James's father's assistant, a prim woman who had always regarded me with a mix of pity and disdain. "Mr. Foster is waiting for you in the conference room," she said, her eyes widening slightly as she took in my appearance. I suppressed a smile, realizing she had probably never seen me in anything but muted professional attire. As we entered the conference room, I saw Richard Foster rise from his seat at the head of the long table. He was a tall, imposing man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that now regarded me with curiosity. "James, Adeline," he greeted us, his tone neutral. "This must be important for you to request such an urgent meeting." "It is, Father," James began, but I gently touched his arm, silently asking to take the lead. "Mr. Foster," I said, meeting his gaze steadily, "thank you for meeting with us on such short notice. We have something significant to discuss, and I believe it's in everyone's best interest that we speak frankly." Richard's eyebrow raised slightly at my directness, but he gestured for us to sit. "Very well, Adeline. I'm listening." Taking a deep breath, I launched into the speech I'd been mentally rehearsing all morning. "Mr. Foster, I'm sure you're aware of the impending leadership transition at Anderson & Steele. What you may not know is that I've been selected as the prime candidate to take over as CEO." I paused, gauging his reaction. To his credit, Richard's expression remained impassive, giving nothing away. "This is an incredible opportunity," I continued. "Not just for me, but for the future of architecture in this city. Anderson & Steele has always been at the forefront of innovation, and I have plans to push that even further." However, I leaned forward slightly, my voice taking on a more serious tone. "I've recently learned that there are concerns being raised about my suitability for the role." Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. "Concerns? From whom?" "From your wife, sir," I said, deciding that honesty was the best approach. "Vivian has apparently expressed doubts to Mr. Anderson about the wisdom of choosing me as his successor." A flicker of something, surprise, annoyance, crossed Richard's face before he schooled his features back into neutrality. "I see. And you're here to, what? Ask for my intervention?" I shook my head, sitting up straighter. "No, Mr. Foster. I'm here to make my case directly to you. I know that your opinion carries significant weight, both with Vivian and within the broader business community. I want you to understand exactly what I bring to the table and why I'm not just the best choice for Anderson & Steele, but potentially a valuable ally for Foster Enterprises as well." For the next half hour, I laid out my vision for the future of Anderson & Steele. I spoke about innovative design concepts, sustainable building practices, and expansion into emerging markets. I highlighted past projects where I'd saved the company millions through efficient planning and creative problem-solving. And finally, I outlined potential areas of collaboration between Anderson & Steele and Foster Enterprises that could benefit both companies. Throughout my presentation, Richard remained silent, his piercing gaze never leaving my face. James, who had been quietly supportive throughout, occasionally chimed in with additional details or clarifications. As I finished speaking, a heavy silence fell over the room. Richard leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him as he regarded me thoughtfully. "That's quite an impressive vision, Adeline," he said finally. "I must admit, I've underestimated you. Your grasp of the industry and its potential is unexpected." I felt a surge of hope at his words, but I knew better than to let my guard down completely. "Thank you, Mr. Foster. I've worked hard to understand every aspect of this business, from the ground up." Richard nodded slowly, then turned to James. "And you, son? What do you think of all this?" James sat up straighter, his voice firm. I think Adeline is brilliant. Father, she's always been the brains behind my success, even when I didn't fully appreciate it. It's time the world saw what she's truly capable of. A ghost of a smile flickered across Richard's face. Well, he said, turning back to me, it seems you've made quite an impression, Adeline. I can't promise to change Vivian's mind. You know how she is once she's set on something. But I can assure you that I won't stand in your way. In fact, he added, a hint of admiration in his voice, I look forward to seeing what you can accomplish. Relief and elation washed over me. It wasn't an outright endorsement, but it was far more than I had dared to hope for. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Your support means a great deal. As we stood to leave, Richard held up a hand. One more thing, Adeline. Vivian is hosting a charity luncheon next week. I think it would be beneficial for you to attend. Show her that you're not backing down. I nodded, understanding the implied challenge. I'll be there, sir, and thank you again for your time. As James and I left the building, I felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. I had won a small victory today, but I knew the real battle was yet to come. Vivian wouldn't give up easily, and the charity luncheon loomed like a gauntlet thrown at my feet. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. The fire that had been rekindled on my birthday was now burning brightly, fueled by the possibility of what lay ahead. I was Adeline Foster, soon to be CEO of Anderson & Steele, and I was ready to take on the world. Little did I know, the challenges I had faced so far were just the beginning. The weeks leading up to the gala would test me in ways I never imagined, forcing me to confront not just Vivian's machinations, but my own deepest fears and insecurities. But with each obstacle, I would grow stronger, more determined, and more certain of my path. The real fight was just beginning, and I was ready for it. The day of Vivian's charity luncheon arrived all too quickly. As I stood in front of my closet, I found myself second-guessing every outfit choice. This wasn't just about looking professional or stylish. It was about making a statement. I needed to show Vivian and her socialite friends that I belonged in their world, while still staying true to myself. Finally, I settled on a sleek, emerald green dress that hugged my curves without being too provocative. It was a far cry from the conservative suits I usually wore to these events, but it made me feel powerful and confident. I paired it with understated gold jewelry and swept my hair into an elegant updo as I applied the finishing touches to my makeup. James appeared in the doorway, his eyes widening appreciatively. "Wow," he breathed. "You look incredible." I smiled, feeling a flutter of nerves in my stomach. "Thanks. Do you think it's too much?" James shook his head emphatically. "It's perfect. You look like a CEO who's ready to take on the world." His words bolstered my confidence, and I straightened my shoulders. Well then, let's go face the lions in their den. The luncheon was being held at an exclusive country club, the kind of place where old money whispered in hushed tones over champagne and tiny sandwiches. As we pulled up to the valet, I took a deep breath, centering myself. "Remember," James said, squeezing my hand, "you have nothing to prove to these people. You're here as a courtesy, not because you need their approval." I nodded, grateful for his support. "Right. Let's do this." As we entered the ballroom, I felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon us. The chatter dimmed for a moment as people took in our arrival, and I heard the distinct sound of whispers starting up. Holding my head high, I plastered on my most charming smile and began to make the rounds. It wasn't long before Vivian spotted us. She glided across the room, a vision in pale blue, her smile as sharp as a knife. "Adeline, James," she greeted us, air-kissing our cheeks. "How lovely of you to join us." "Adeline, dear, that's certainly an interesting choice of attire." I refused, to let her backhanded compliment rattle me. "Thank you, Vivian. Green has always been my power color. Your luncheon looks wonderful. You must have put so much effort into planning it. Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly at my calm response. Yes. Well, some of us understand the importance of maintaining certain standards in society. Before I could respond, we were interrupted by the arrival of Evelyn Blackwood, one of Vivian's closest friends and a notorious gossip. Vivian. Darling, she trilled, before turning her sharp gaze on me. And Adeline. My, don't you look bold today? I heard the most interesting rumor about you, dear. Something about a rather significant promotion? I felt James tense beside me, but I kept my cool. News certainly travels fast in this circle, doesn't it, Evelyn? You're right, there are some exciting changes happening at Anderson & Steele. But I'm afraid I can't discuss the details just yet. Evelyn's eyes gleamed with interest. Oh, come now, surely you can give us a little hint? After all, we're all friends here. I smiled, but my tone was firm. I appreciate your interest, Evelyn, but as I said, nothing is official yet. I'm sure you understand the importance of discretion in these matters. Vivian, who had been watching this exchange with barely concealed irritation, jumped in. Oh, Adeline, don't be so modest. I'm sure whatever little project you're working on is very exciting for you. But let's not bore everyone with shop talk. Evelyn, did you hear about the new wing being added to the Children's Hospital? The Foster Foundation is spearheading the project. As Vivian steered the conversation away from me, I caught a glimpse of something in her eyes. A flicker of fear, perhaps? It was gone in an instant, but it was enough to make me realize that she saw me as a real threat. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. The rest of the luncheon passed in a blur of polite small talk and subtle power plays. I found myself constantly on guard, carefully navigating conversations that seemed designed to trip me up or make me reveal more than I intended. But with each interaction, I grew more confident. These were the people I'd be dealing with as CEO, and I was holding my own. As the event wound down, I excused myself to use the restroom. As I was washing my hands, the door opened, and Vivian entered. Our eyes met in the mirror, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. You've certainly made quite an impression today, Vivian said finally, her tone carefully neutral. I turned to face her, leaning against the counter. Thank you. I've learned from the best, after all. Vivian's eyebrow arched. Have you now? And what exactly do you think you've learned, Adeline? I held her gaze steadily. I've learned that in this world, you have to fight for what you want. That sometimes the most powerful move is to stand your ground, even when everyone expects you to back down. A flicker of something, respect, amusement, passed across Vivian's face. Is that what you think you're doing? Standing your ground? It's what I know I'm doing, I replied, my voice firm. Vivian, I know you've been trying to undermine my position at Anderson & Steele. I want you to know that it won't work. I've earned this opportunity, and I intend to make the most of it. Vivian was silent for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. But I held my ground, refusing to be the first to look away. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and dangerous. You may think you've won some small victory here today, Adeline. But let me be very clear. You have no idea what you're up against. This isn't just about a job or a title. This is about a legacy, about maintaining a certain order in our world. And I will not stand by and watch you disrupt that order. I felt a chill run down my spine at her words, but I kept my expression neutral. I'm not trying to disrupt anything, Vivian. I'm simply claiming my place at the table, a place I've earned through hard work and talent. Vivian's laugh was cold and humorless. Oh, you naive girl. You really think that's all it takes in this world? Hard work and talent? She shook her head, almost pityingly. You're playing a game you don't even understand, Adeline, and trust me, you're not prepared for what's coming. With that, she turned on her heel and left, leaving me alone in the restroom, my heart pounding. I gripped the edge of the counter, taking deep breaths to steady myself. Vivian's words had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. What did she mean? I wasn't prepared. What was coming? As I stared at my reflection in the mirror, I saw a flicker of doubt in my eyes. For a moment, I wondered if I was in over my head. But then I remembered how far I'd come, how hard I'd fought to get here. I thought of all the people who believed in me, James, Anderson, even Richard Foster in his own way. I straightened up, smoothing my dress and checking my makeup. Vivian might think she had the upper hand, but she had underestimated me. I wasn't the same meek Adeline who had let herself be pushed around for years. I was stronger now, more determined than ever. As I left the restroom and rejoined the party, I felt a new resolve settling over me. Whatever Vivian had planned, whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them head on. The countdown to the gala and my official announcement as CEO had begun, and I was ready for whatever came next. Little did I know, the true test of my strength and resolve was yet to come. The weeks leading up to the gala would push me to my limits, forcing me to confront not just Vivian's machinations, but my own deepest fears and insecurities. But with each obstacle, I would grow stronger, more determined, and more certain of my path. The real fight was just beginning, and I was ready for it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. By day, I threw myself into my work at Anderson & Steele, finalizing plans for the transition and preparing for my new role as CEO. By night, I strategized with James, planning how to counter whatever moves Vivian might make next. It was during one of these late-night planning sessions, curled up on our living room sofa with laptops and notepads strewn about, that I received an unexpected call from Anderson himself. "Adeline," his gruff voice came through the speaker. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I exchanged a glance with James before responding, "Not at all, sir. Is everything all right?" There was a pause, and I could almost picture Anderson's furrowed brow as he chose his words carefully. "I've just gotten off the phone with the board. It seems there's been some pushback regarding your appointment." My stomach dropped. "Pushback? From whom?" Anderson sighed heavily. "A few key investors have expressed concerns about your experience level. They're pushing for a more traditional candidate." I felt James tense beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing it supportively. "And what did you tell them?" I pressed, dreading the answer. "I told them that you're the best damn architect and project manager this firm has ever seen," Anderson replied firmly. "But Adeline, I won't lie to you. This fight is far from over. We need to make sure your presentation at the gala is absolutely flawless. It needs to blow them all away." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to center myself. When I opened them again, I met James's concerned gaze and found strength in his unwavering support. "Thank you for letting me know, sir. I won't let you down." After exchanging a few more words, I ended the call and turned to James, my mind racing. "It's Vivian," I said, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. "She must be behind this. She's trying to turn the board against me before I even have a chance to prove myself." James ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his face. "I'm so sorry, Adeline. I knew she'd try something, but this is low, even for her." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this new challenge settling over us. Then, something inside me shifted. The initial shock and fear began to give way to a slow-burning anger, and with it, a fierce determination. "You know what?" I said, sitting up straighter. "Let her try. I'm done running from her judgment, done trying to appease her impossible standards. If Vivian wants a fight, she's got one." James looked at me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "That's my girl," he said, a proud smile spreading across his face. "So, what's the plan?" I stood up, pacing the room as my mind whirred with possibilities. Anderson said my presentation needs to be flawless. Well, it's going to be more than that. It's going to be revolutionary. I'm going to show them a vision for the future of architecture that they can't ignore. For the next few weeks, I threw myself into preparation with a fervor that surprised even me. I worked late into the night, refining my designs, creating stunning 3D models, and crafting a presentation that would showcase not just my technical skills, but my vision for the future of Anderson and Steele. But Vivian wasn't idle either. Rumors began to circulate in the industry. Whispers about my lack of experience, insinuations that I had used my relationship with James to climb the ladder. Each new piece of gossip felt like a dagger, but I refused to let it show. Instead, I used it as fuel, pushing myself harder, determined to prove them all wrong. As the day of the gala approached, the pressure became almost unbearable. I was surviving on coffee and sheer willpower, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. The night before the event, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, doubt creeping in despite my best efforts. What if they're right? I whispered to my reflection. What if I'm not ready for this? Suddenly, I felt James's arms wrap around me from behind. They're not right, he said firmly, meeting my eyes in the mirror. You are more than ready for this, Adeline. You're going to show them all exactly who you are and what you're capable of. I leaned back into his embrace, drawing strength from his unwavering belief in me. Thank you, I murmured. I don't know what I'd do without you. The night of the gala arrived in a flurry of excitement and nerves. As I slipped into my carefully chosen dress, a sleek midnight blue number that made me feel powerful and confident, I took a moment to center myself. This was it. Everything I had worked for came down to this night. The ballroom was a sea of glittering gowns and sharp tuxedos when we arrived. I felt the weight of eyes upon me as we made our entrance, heard the whispers start up almost immediately. But this time, I didn't shrink from the attention. I embraced it, holding my head high as we made our way through the crowd. I spotted Vivian across the room, resplendent in a crimson gown that screamed power and influence. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of us. I saw the challenge in her gaze, the silent dare to back down, but I held firm, meeting her stare with one of my own. I wouldn't be intimidated, not tonight. As the evening progressed, I mingled with board members and investors, subtly laying the groundwork for my presentation. I could feel the undercurrent of tension, the mix of curiosity and skepticism that greeted me at every turn. But with each conversation, I grew more confident. I knew my stuff, and I was ready to prove it. Finally, it was time. As I took the stage, I felt a moment of panic. The room seemed to spin, and for a second, I thought I might faint. But then I caught James's eye in the crowd. He gave me a small nod, and suddenly, everything snapped into focus. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and honored guests, tonight, I stand before you not just as an architect or a project manager, but as a visionary with a dream for the future of Anderson and Steele. As I launched into my presentation, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me. The 3D models I had painstakingly created came to life on the screen behind me, showcasing innovative designs that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. I spoke of sustainable materials, of buildings that could adapt to changing environmental conditions, of cities that could grow and evolve with their inhabitants. But more than that, I spoke of a future where architecture wasn't just about creating structures, but about shaping communities, where our designs could address social issues, promote inclusivity, and foster connection in an increasingly disconnected world. As I neared the end of my presentation, I could feel the energy in the room shift. The skepticism I had sensed earlier had given way to a palpable excitement. Even some of the staunchest traditionalists were leaning forward in their seats, eyes wide with interest. This, I said, gesturing to the final image on the screen, a breathtaking cityscape that seemed to merge nature and technology seamlessly, is not just a dream. It's a future we can build together, a future that Anderson and Steele can lead us towards. I paused, my gaze sweeping across the room before landing on Vivian. She sat rigid in her seat, her expression unreadable. But I thought I detected a flicker of something in her eyes, respect, perhaps, or fear. I stand before you today not asking for your approval or your permission, I continued, my voice strong and clear. I'm here to tell you that this is the direction we need to move in if we want to remain at the forefront of our industry, and I am ready to lead us there. As I finished speaking, there was a moment of stunned silence. And then, slowly at first but building quickly, applause began to fill the room. It grew louder and louder until it was a thunderous roar, people rising to their feet in a standing ovation. I stood there, overwhelmed by the response, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. I had shown them exactly who I was and what I was capable of. As the applause continued, I caught James's eye in the crowd. He was beaming with pride, mouthing, "You did it," across the room. But my gaze was drawn back to Vivian. She remained seated, her expression now clearly one of shock and disbelief. For years, she had underestimated me, tried to keep me small and manageable. But tonight, I had shattered every preconception, every box she had tried to put me in. As I made my way off the stage, I was immediately surrounded by board members and investors, all eager to discuss my ideas further. The excitement in the air was palpable, and I could sense that something had fundamentally shifted. Later that night, as the gala was winding down, I found myself face to face with Vivian. For a long moment, we simply regarded each other in silence. "Well," she said finally, her voice tight, "it seems I may have misjudged you, Adeline." I met her gaze steadily. "Yes, you did. But it's not too late for us to start over, Vivian. On equal footing this time." She studied me for a moment longer, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Perhaps," she said, before turning and walking away. As I watched her go, I felt a sense of triumph, but also a strange sort of peace. I had faced my greatest fear, stood up to the woman who had tormented me for years, and come out stronger for it. James appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around my waist. "You were incredible," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple. I leaned into him, suddenly exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," I said softly. "We really did it." As we left the gala that night, hand in hand, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, completely ready to face whatever came next. I was Adeline Foster, soon to be CEO of Anderson & Steele, and I had finally found my voice. The future was bright, and I was ready to build it, one groundbreaking design at a time. As we drove home through the quiet city streets, the events of the night replaying in my mind, I couldn't help but smile. I had come so far from that insecure woman at my birthday party, constantly seeking approval and validation. Tonight, I had claimed my power, my voice, and my rightful place in the world. But even as I basked in the glow of my triumph, a small part of me wondered what Vivian's next move would be. I had won this battle, but something told me the war was far from over. Little did I know, the greatest challenge of all was yet to come. One that would test not just my professional skills, but the very core of who I was and what I believed in. But that's a story for another time. For now, I was content to savor this moment of victory, this first step towards the future I had always dreamed of, but never quite dared to reach for. The road ahead might be uncertain, but one thing was clear: I was ready for whatever it might bring.